Today is Monday, November 4th, and Larry Johnson is here with us. Welcome back, Larry.
Hi there. I'm back.
Yeah. Larry, let's start with what's going on between Iran and Israel. How serious is Iran in terms of what they're talking about attacking Israel, responding to what Israel did?
It's a little tough to sort out in the media. The articles that are appearing claiming, boy, Iran definitely is going to strike back. Those are appearing in the Wall Street Journal, Jerusalem Times, or Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, and even Haaretz. So, not exactly what I'd call objective Iranian sources of information. Iran, there have been public statements by both Khamenei, by the supreme leader, as well as by a general or two, that Iran is going to retaliate. And I know that Professor Morandi, who you've had on your show, he's been, I think, pretty insistent that Iran is going to retaliate. So it looks like they will. And when that takes place, remains to be seen. What's fascinating, too, though, is there's a lot of disinformation out there. First, they'll say that Iran is going to launch all these rockets, missiles at Israel from Iraq. What? Just the logistics involved with that, having to, haul rockets, particularly ballistic missiles into Iraq and then set them up and then launch them and not be detected. And you're in an area where you don't have really the same kind of control that you do have in Iran, where you've got your army. I mean, please, that's silly. Or that Iran has got a more powerful weapon, larger warhead to use. That may be the case. So what has been proven up to this point is that Iran can penetrate and defeat Israeli air defense systems. And if Israel had succeeded in defeating Iran's attacks, why did Israel need the THAAD? Why do you need the United States to send not one, not two, but three theater high altitude area defense systems? Well, because your system sucks. Iron Dome didn't work. The Sling Arrow or whatever the other one is called, it failed to protect Israel. And even today, you're seeing constant barrage from Hezbollah of rocket after rocket and drone after drone, and they're not shooting. Israel's not taking every one of them down, because if they did, they'd run out of air defense missiles. So I think Iran is intent on striking back, and they're going to do it in their, they're trying to do it sort of, I'll call it the legal way. They first go to the United Nations again and file a complaint and say, hey, we've been attacked again, and under international law, you're supposed to stop this. And instead, the United Nations vetoes any action in condemnation of Israel, and then Iran says, okay, that is they've checked that box for Russia. The Russian and Chinese say, hey, let's try to, at least follow the rules that the West says exists. And once you follow it and then it gets shoved in your face, and you say, okay, you checked that box, you've done that. All right, now you can punch them back.
Larry, you've mentioned what's going on in the southern part of Lebanon. How do they feel, the Israeli army? How do they feel right now in the southern part of Lebanon?
Who? Hezbollah?
Israelis.
Well, how do the Israelis feel? Well, not very good. I mean, they are having great success at blowing up houses and villages, bombing them. But they've not dislodged Hezbollah. They've not stopped the launch of rockets. They just went on to the Ynet News, ynetnews.com, and that they're breaking news. And it's like, missile launch, rocket launch, about every 15, 20 minutes, a new one's getting launched. So Israel's goal, this ostensible goal in going into southern Lebanon, was to push Hezbollah back north of the Litani River, and then hopefully that would buy them some peace so they could bring their settlers back into northern Israel. Hezbollah, they haven't dislodged Hezbollah. The ground forces really have not advanced very far. They have done a horrific job of blowing up villages, but that's about it. Excuse me.
Here is one of the videos of Hezbollah, one of the Hezbollah's strongholds that Israel has destroyed. Here is the video. It's the same building.
Yeah, looks like a terrorist to me. I mean, look, Israel has established itself as a terrorist state. And there's no other way to say it. And by saying that, if you get accused of being an anti-Semite, okay. I'm certainly against this notion, and this really goes to the root of Zionism. The root of Zionism is we're special. God loves us more than God loves you. God has done things for us that he has not done for you. And therefore, we can do anything we want to you because God said it's for us, it's okay. Now, I'm sure that is the kind of supreme being that they believe in. If we're going to model supreme beings after parents, we would know that a parent that played favorites with children would be an awful parent. A parent that fed one child better than another, dressed one child better than another, educated one child better than another, would be an awful, horrific person. So I don't believe that this God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is that kind of God. It's going to say that I will endorse the murder and slaughter of people just because you say that they're Amalek. It's awful. This is a disgrace, and yet it's been enabled by many. Particularly many evangelical Christians. They say, well, it's in the Old Testament, in the Torah. And as I've said before, if you want to believe that book was written by God himself, go ahead. There's no evidence for it. What there is evidence for it is that the Hebrews, they wrote the book from their point of view, and with their particular justifications in mind. And now it leads to destruction like that, blowing up homes. And I suspect I wasn't able to read all of the subscript, but that young woman who was playing the piano, was she killed?
Yeah,
Probably. I would suspect that was one of the. Wasn't just the fact that the house was destroyed and the piano was destroyed. You can build a new house. You can buy a new piano. But if you destroy the life of that young woman who was playing the music so beautifully, you can't destroy her. You can't replace her. She's not replaceable. So that's the kind of loss that the grief I think that was being expressed by the horror of what Israel has done was emblematic in the fact that there she was a year ago peacefully playing, and maybe now dead.
Yeah. Larry, without putting right now, without gaining some land from on the ground, I'm not talking about these air from the air they can attack Hezbollah.
Yeah,
But on the ground, what is Israel capable with what we've seen so far in advancing in the southern part of Lebanon? In terms of, it seems that they want to just push Hezbollah to the other side of Litani
the
River.
Litani River. Yeah, they don't have the ability to do that. They're not never going to succeed in doing that. But it's not just that they can force Hezbollah out of some positions and force Hezbollah to fall back. Can they create a condition in which people can live at peace? They can come to their home, they can go to bed at night, not have to worry about being blown up with a bomb in the middle of the night, not worried about somebody launching a rocket at them. Can Israel secure a peace like that? No, they can't. That's the problem. It is Hezbollah is got too many resources, and frankly, I think even though the West goes to great lengths to portray Hezbollah as this mighty terrorist organization, it's the equivalent. It really is the equivalent of what the American patriots were, who were fighting against British rule. As far as the Brits were concerned, we were terrorists, absolutely. But Hezbollah, if you go back and look at its attacks, it's not just launching random attacks on civilians. It's not carrying out suicide bombings in pizza cafes. It's hitting military targets. It's going after soldiers. It's going after security installations, after border observation posts. And Israel does not have the size of force nor the will to sustain the fight against them. In my view, they've never fought a war this long. They're now going into the 14th month or 13th month. They haven't had as many casualties yet as will prove a tipping point, but that's coming, and they're already suffering under the strain of what they have lost, and they still haven't pacified Gaza. Yeah, they're killing and brutalizing an enormous number of Palestinians. The official Palestinian figures are at 43,000. Some say they're, double, triple that. A lot of children. But still, Israel's not in control of Gaza. They have troop presence, but those guys can't walk the streets at any hour of the day or night and not worry about getting shot or ambushed or blown up, because Hamas is still there fighting. Same thing on the West Bank.
How do you find the policy of Washington sending new bombers to the Middle East? Is it going to, do they have any sort of a strategy in their mind? Not despite supporting Israel, I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about the future of what's going on. They cannot go along with this plan that killing civilians, destroying Gaza. And right now, do you think that is there any sort of strategy on the part of Washington to convince the Netanyahu administration not to continue with this campaign of killing civilians?
No, I don't think there's certainly no strategic vision. This deployment of the 12 B-52s, really odd. One, the B-52s are either going to be used to drop bombs or drop cruise missiles, air-launched ballistic missiles. Well, they don't need to be at Al Udeid Air Force Base to do that. they could be based over at Diego Garcia, for example, in the Maldives. But they're reportedly on the ground at Al Udeid, which is in Qatar, just across the water, the Persian Gulf, from Iran. So they're actually an easy reach of Iranian missiles if Iran chooses to attack them. I think that they were sent there simply as a symbolic gesture. The aircraft carrier that is currently deployed is being pulled out, and it's going to be replaced by another carrier task force. But the other one's not there on scene yet. So what do? You fly these planes in to say, yeah, we've got a presence here. If are these the kind of planes you'd want to use in a direct attack on Iran? I'd say why not the B-2, B-1 bombers? Those would be make more sense. So it is. It's almost like they're baiting Iran. Say, hey, come hit these, and those are big fat targets that I think Iran could take out with no problem. But as far as the strategy goes, there is no strategy. It's basically we're going to flex our muscles and hope the other people run away.
Larry, what do we know about the leaks of Israeli classified intelligence? You've written about this on your.
Well, yeah. Well, so the Attorney General of Israel, who's not apparently a member of Bibi's party, she actually comes from the opposition party, has brought charges against now 5 people that are in Bibi Netanyahu's circle. Who have been, let's call them press spokesmen. One was just an IDF, a colonel in the Israeli Defense Force. So apparently what was happening is these people were taking classified information and sharing it. This one guy, Feldstein, he was the first one arrested. And he had gone to Germany and then leaked out information that was classified information about the state of the negotiations with Hamas and about the location of prisoners. Well, he was doing all of this, according to the prosecutor, at the behest and direction of Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu was having these people leak information in order to sabotage any possibility of a hostage deal, to paint Israel in the most favorable light possible. And some of these leaks included false information, claiming that they had a laptop with the current writings of Senwar, for example. Apparently, I wasn't tracking what the leaks were over time, but they did catch the attention of Shin Bet, and Shin Bet had already indicated that this Feldstein character should not have any access to classified information, but he clearly was allowed that access and was distributing it. So Netanyahu's his first play was to claim, well, I didn't know nothing about birthing no babies. I have no idea. Now he's claiming that it's a political vendetta by an angry attorney general. And maybe it is. But the evidence that she's presenting seems pretty solid. So this is just what a country needs when it's at war, to have this kind of political battle going on inside, which threatens to jail the very top political leadership.
And you mentioned the sort of support that Netanyahu is receiving from the people, from the public opinion. But how about the people who are working right now with him? And Gallant, who was against going to the southern part of Lebanon. And do you find it right now? Do you find any sort of unity among the?
Well, no, clearly there's no unity. I think the majority of the Israeli people are in favor of the policy that Netanyahu's pursuing with respect to the Palestinian question, which is eliminate them, exterminate them, get rid of them. Get rid of them out of Gaza, get rid of them out of the West Bank so we don't have to be terrorized anymore by them. That's got, I think, pretty widespread support in Israel, but that's the support of a government policy. They don't like, I think there's at least a 50% dislike of Bibi Netanyahu, particularly in light of this latest scandal. So it is going to hurt him. But it doesn't change. Once they get rid of Bibi, it does not change the policy. They may have to find a way to declare victory. Say, okay, hey, we accomplished all of our objectives in Lebanon. Now we're withdrawing. Even though they didn't. They may opt for that. If Iran strikes Israel, that could be a game changer. What do I mean? If Iran again penetrates Israeli air defenses, only this time uses more powerful missiles, more accurate missiles, uses some of the advanced generation of ballistic missiles that reportedly they have and have not used, and they end up hitting and destroying, say, Mossad headquarters. They hit and destroy the Unit 8200 headquarters in Galat, just outside of Tel Aviv. That they destroy the significant number of aircraft at, say, Nevatim Air Force Base. Then all of a sudden, you've got a real different situation, because Israel will have been exposed that, hey, it no longer is the biggest dog on the block. It's no longer capable of defending itself. Then Israel will be tempted to strike back and possibly use a nuke. And if they do that, then this war will escalate dramatically, because other Muslim nations are not going to sit by and let Israel use nukes. Pakistan has already made that pretty clear. So what Israel has succeeded in doing is uniting, bringing together a level of unity among Shia and Sunni Muslims that was not there a year and a half ago, because it's evoking outrage among the populace. They see the murder of these children and of these women. They see the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they're not going to stand for it. They're going to fight against it.
Is Israel capable of keeping the northern part of Gaza?
At the current rate, no. I think this war of attrition, they cannot sustain it, and let's say this, it proceeds with the assumption that the United States is going to remain economically strong and able to continue to supply Israel. If something happens that the United States cannot do that, then Israel's screwed, to put it bluntly. Israel has no good options after that point. If there's another scenario that if Iran attempts an attack on Israel and fails, that will, invisibly fails, unlike the last time where, on October 1st, you saw the missiles hitting, and you saw the fact that Israel wasn't able to stop them. If Israel's able to stop a majority of the Iranian missiles, then that will be a defeat for Iran and a victory for Israel, and may help bring a way to exit out of this crisis. But if after that attack Israel says, no, we got to respond, then we're just into the escalation. It won't stop until one or both countries are dead.
Iranian President Pezeshkian, he said that if they found some sort of solution, if the international community goes after some sort of solution in terms of what's going on in Lebanon and in Gaza,
Hmm.
they may reconsider what they would do to Israel. But do you feel any sort of understanding in the United States of what may happen between Iran and Israel? Is that important in the mind of the United States, or they don't care what Iran is talking about?
Well, there's some in the United States that would want to see the negotiation go forward, but again, neglects to understand the Zionist mindset. These Zionists, some of whom are religious, and that's the other thing that's really ironic. You got a lot of Zionists who are not religious. So in other words, they don't believe in the book that they're using to excuse their claim, to justify claiming this land is ours. It's crazy. But they have zero. The Zionists have zero interest in negotiation, in negotiation in a way that would be acceptable to any of the Palestinians. They want them to leave, whether they have to kill them, starve them out, send them into exile. Go away. This land is ours. It's not yours. You don't negotiate with that. The only negotiation that would ultimately take place is if Israel's very survival was at stake. That had been defeated militarily, and now was facing the prospect that the Palestinians would roll over and take all of it. And then in that weakened position, Israel might plead for save. Let's go back to the pre-67 boundaries. Might probably be too late at that point, but it wouldn't shock me that if that sort of scenario developed, that I would expect that the Hamas and Hezbollah folks would be willing to actually make that kind of concession. They're not, even though they're portrayed as this genocidal maniacs, the ones who are the genocidal maniacs and acting as such is Israel, not Hezbollah, not Hamas.
Larry, if you were a Palestinian right now, how would you think about who's going to be the most important force for you? Right now, ICC, ICJ, BRICS, Iran together with the Axis of Resistance. And in terms of what they're doing right now and what is their capabilities of helping Palestinians, how would you draw the picture as a Palestinian?
Well, I'd want to see Turkey first and foremost step up and take immediate action to cut the oil flow to Israel. Cut the oil flow. That's going to help. That's going to help restrain Israel's ability to fight and conduct their operation. So I think Turkey would have really some enormous influence. I'd also like to see Jordan and Egypt cut relationships with Israel and enforce an isolation, break diplomatic relations, and do all that they can to shut down any flow of commerce at the borders into Israel, unless it's guaranteed to be flowing to the Palestinians as well. Ideally, the United States would say, hey, we're going to put a halt to this. We're not going to allow you to continue to murder, to engage in genocidal behavior. But there's, no political will at this point in the United States to do that. So, but I don't see the Palestinians saying, oh, we've had too much pain, we're giving up. They're going to fight till they die. I mean, they're literally fighting for survival. And, you can't buy that. They're not, the Hamas is nothing that's going to be bought off with a few, gold bars.
Do you think that the situation in the Middle East is much more complicated than the one in Ukraine,
Oh
or
yeah.
they're the same?
Oh, extremely so. Extremely so. When you lace in the religious element that within Sunni and within Shia, I guess, sects, then with Judaism, then with evangelical Christians, then with the other ethnic, whether it's Arab or Persian or Turkish or Egyptian, then, all of that gets thrown into the mix, gets very, very, very complicated. Israel has enjoyed a dominance up to now. And I think that its ability to continue that dominance is really going to be put and called into question in the coming weeks.
Larry, how's it going right now in Ukraine? Are we heading toward the final days of the conflict in Ukraine?
Yes. No, it's, the old expression, the fat lady singing. When the fat lady sings at the opera, that means the opera is almost over. Where the curtain's coming down. You can see it because the New York Times is starting to run articles about, it's no longer a stalemate. Russia's winning. Ukraine's losing. No kidding. I was writing that 3 months ago. And you can see the direction this was headed more than a year ago. They admitted that the intelligence analysts screwed it up, that they thought that they missed the fact that Russia would mount this offensive that it has mounted. They didn't think Russia was capable of it. Again, I'd argue just the opposite. So where it stands right now is Russia is advancing rapidly across the entire front. And there will be some areas that are going to collapse more quickly than anticipated. It is certainly not a stalemate. A stalemate means neither side has a direction that they can move without going into checkmate, and that therefore their moves are limited and they're constrained what they can do. Russia has no constraints. Ukraine does. Ukraine doesn't have manpower. It's lacking in certain weapon systems, not because the West doesn't want to give them to them. It's in part because the West can't produce enough to give to them, and then also support Israel. So, the entire situation is becoming more desperate with each passing day.
In your opinion, the situation in the Middle East is helping the conflict in Ukraine to come to an end?
I'm not sure it's helping. They've become the redheaded stepchild. Nobody's paying as much attention to it. Israel, Middle East, that's where the attention's focused. And actually, it's shifting the focus to China as well. The Russia winning here it's got the Europeans terrified. And they are, casting about for some savior, some salvation, and there is none to be had.
And considering what's really going on in Ukraine, it seems that if Donald Trump wins, which is so much in favor of putting an end to the conflict in Ukraine, that would be unbelievable for him. It's so difficult to talk with the way that the things are going right now. The eastern part of Ukraine, Russia would not let these parts going back in the hand of Ukrainians. Even I would argue that Odessa, Nikolaev, Dnipropetrovsk, these cities, which are very important, Russia would have some sort of dominance on these cities. Do you think that is the United States, is Washington prepared to talk this way with Russia?
Well, the West, even if they're prepared to talk to Russia, it doesn't matter what the West says. It matters what Russia says. Russia's going to call the shots on this. The day of Russia making concessions and trying to get back into the good graces of the United States. Yeah, I mean, there's something going on behind the scenes right now, which is not getting any attention, but it was confirmed today by Alex Christoforou that Western banks are now being allowed to, they're doing business, they're allowing Russian banks to do business with them. Why? So they're they're basically easing up some of the financial sanctions and restrictions. Well, they're not just doing that because they're kind-hearted people. Something's happened that's made the West need to start dealing with Russian banks. Number one, the Russians are going to achieve their ends militarily. It would be up to the United States to decide whether they want to have any further future relations with Russia going forward. Because I think the Russians have made the decision, we don't need the West. But 2.5 years ago, the Russians probably couldn't have imagined themselves living without being part of Western culture. Now they realize, apart from the inconvenience of not being able to travel and not being able to, have the currency as easy to use because of the restrictions on the Russian ruble and the dollar, Russians have awakened and realized, hell, we're fine. We're doing just fine. We're not. We even got our imitation McDonald's. We continue to eat McDonald's. It's just under a different name. Burger King is still there under Burger King. So you can go into any of the grocery stores, and if you want Coke and Pepsi, if that's your thing, you can get that. And the stores are overflowing with fruits and vegetables and consumer goods. And, wages are going up. They are having a little bit of a problem with inflation because there is a competition there's a scarcity of labor and you need to hire more people. It means you need to pay them more. Plus they've got about a 1.4 million man army now. And so that takes a bunch of guys out of the labor force. So I think at this point it's just a question of how long can Ukraine hang on? And I don't think it's that long. I've heard some people talking about, this would go into 2026. I don't, how is that possible? That assumes that the United States has continued to pump billions of dollars in there. And even if Kamala Harris wins, that's in doubt. But apart from that, she's going to, whoever the next president, let me put it this way. We need to have Trump as the winner if we're going to have a hope for peace. Because despite his bombast and, his threat, some of the crazy things he'll say, like, Israel should use nukes against Iran. At heart, he is a pacifist. At heart, he wants to find a negotiated end, not to see how many wars he can start. That's been his MO, and that's, I think, his continued MO, and that's what I think most people in the United States want. But you got a hardcore class, man. They want to go to war. There's money to be made. It's profitable to be at war.
On the other hand, we have these political elites in the European Union who are totally against Donald Trump. And we've seen in his first term how they treated Donald Trump. Do you think that if he wins, he's going to have the same sort of difficulties with the European Union?
Well, you sort of got a hint of Trump's character on that point at the Al Smith dinner that was held in New York City 3 weeks ago. And it's a Catholic charity foundation, but both Republicans and Democrats are supposed to attend. Well, there was Democrat Mayor Eric Adams, who'd been recently indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice after he'd been complaining vociferously about U.S. immigration policy. Trump could have blasted him. Instead, Trump was saying, hey, man, I know what you're going through. If you need some help, let me know. He was very friendly towards Eric Adams. The governor, Kathy Hochul, she has been just venomous towards Trump. Trump, spoke about her and said, hey, I want to work with you to help make New York great again. We can do it together. Conciliatory. So even though, a lot of these European leaders are just complete jerks and classless clowns, I think Trump will ultimately try to find a way to work with them to negotiate. But the one thing he is insistent upon is the United States is not going to pay the full bill. We're not taking everybody out to dinner and you all get to eat on us for free every night. No. You have to pick up the check once in a while.
Don't you think that right now it seems to me that in Washington they're trying to say, even those people who are trying to say, let Europe fight for itself, they want to send more weapons to the European Union than want. It seems that they want to weaponize Europe against Russia, not.
Yeah, but what are they going to send? 155 millimeter shells? They can't make. They're having trouble making those. In fact, the Europeans have admitted they can't make enough to meet their needs. Patriot missiles, but most of those have gone to Israel. And Lockheed Martin was only making 550. They may be up to 600. So, I mean, what? M1 Abrams tanks? F-35? The only thing that they're really making and trying to sell are the F-35 jets. And maybe some of the Strikers, the armored personnel carrier. But see, this is part of the problem. The United States has gotten itself into a situation militarily where our entire defense industry is based upon building very expensive, not very effective or useful equipment. And the Europeans aren't lining, their economies aren't doing great. They're not flush with cash. With, oh, yeah, we got a bunch of extra cash. Let's buy your stuff. Germany is contracting. With Volkswagen closing and the cascade effect that's going to have across the automobile industry, the people that supply parts and components to Volkswagen, they're going to be out of work. Russia, I don't know if you saw, has offered. So there's a Chinese plant that's in Russia that is licensed to build Volkswagen. And they're inviting the German workers, hey, come here and work in this plant. Yeah. And with the promise of citizenship. So, Europe is making itself irrelevant because what economic resources does it have? Coal, oil, natural gas, lithium, nickel, aluminum, great wheat harvest. I mean, what's the resources? They don't have any. We got some pretty cool places to come visit as a tourist to walk around and look at old stuff. Yeah, you got that. Nice ski slopes, but no resources. The resources, where are they? They're in Ukraine, they're in Russia, they're in India, they're in China, they're in Saudi Arabia, they're in Nigeria, they're in Iran. Picking up a pattern here, countries with resources is where the power is flowing. The United States is still a power player because it has resources, but not as many as it did, say, 50 years ago.
Yeah. One of the casualties in both conflicts in Ukraine and in the Middle East that nobody's talking about is the European Union. They passed away.
Yeah.
You don't see any sort of sign when it comes to the Middle East. And in Ukraine, they're just totally unbelievably mad and nobody knows what's going on in their mind.
Yeah. The European Union has been a special club. And I don't know if you've ever, in your experience, if you know what a country club is. So they have these clubs, special clubs, that they're by special invitation only. You have to either meet certain requirements. It used to be there were some clubs that they'd only, if you were white and Christian, they'd only let you in. Or a club, I know there's a club up in the United States is for the Irish only. You got to be at the Gaelic Society or Catholics, Knights of Columbus. So you got this exclusive club, and you only let in people that you want to let in. Well, the Turks have been trying for 30 years to get part of the EU because there were some trade benefits to be had, among other things, and these have traveled throughout Europe. Europeans kept saying, no, no, nine, no, no. Well, now Turkey's saying, okay, let's join BRICS. Now, maybe they're doing that as a way to try to make the EU jealous that maybe the EU will come back. Oh, no, you can come join us now. Yeah, they could be playing that kind of game. But regardless, it's still a reminder that EU is no longer the only game in town.
Yeah.
There's a new kid in town. It's called BRICS.
How long, Larry, just to wrap up this session, do you think how long does it take for BRICS to make some sort of military alliance in terms of peace, to keep peace, not to go on offensive?
I don't think that's on the immediate horizon. BRICS is a unit. I mean, the militarily within BRICS, Russia and China and India, they've got the real military power and potential. South Africa doesn't. Brazil doesn't. So, and while Iran has some military capabilities, they're really seeing that the focus on BRICS needs to be on the economic side, developing a proper payment system, getting currencies tied to something of value that they cannot be controlled by or manipulated by the United States.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today.
All right, let's see what happens this week.
Great pleasure as always. Yeah.
All right, Nima. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.